Chances are that when you turn on your computer, the first thing you see on the screen is Windows. Microsoft's flagship software runs more than 90% of the personal computers in the world. Nearly everyone in the computer industry is afraid of Microsoft. Everyone, that is, except Scott McNeally. CEO of computer maker Sun Microsystems, he's determined to break the Windows monopoly. McNeally helped convince the federal government to file its antitrust suit against Microsoft. And in a field that's not exactly known for colorful characters, he attacks Microsoft in a style that's less like a computer nerd than a stand-up comedian.
The top 10 signs that you might be a monopolist.
At industry conventions, McNeally's Microsoft bashing monologues are legendary.
Number 10, Janet Reno has you on speed dial.
So are his promotional videos. The storyline is usually the same.
Nothing succeeds like excess.
Bill Gates' lookalike gets zapped by Scott McNeally. What do you say about a corporate comic who gives speeches on rollerblades?
There's no brakes on these things. Whoa!
If you're tempted to dismiss McNeally as goofy, don't. He happens to be one of the most influential businessmen in America, succeeding with a game plan that almost every other CEO has dismissed as suicidal, blitzing Bill Gates.
I don't like anything where you don't have a score. The nice thing about being CEO is your score is in the Wall Street Journal under NASDAQ every day.
Lately, he's been running up the score. Sun stock has more than doubled in the past year. How big is Sun? How many people work here?
We got 27,000 people worldwide, about $10 billion in revenue.
27,000, that's just about what Microsoft has?
Yeah.
Everybody has heard of Microsoft. Everybody has not heard of Sun.
Well, that's all right. We want computing to be invisible.
Sun is invisible because most people will never buy what they make.
These are the servers.
Sun manufactures huge computers called servers and sells them not to individual consumers, but to businesses all over the world.
Very different from what your personal computer is.
Servers are the link between your PC and the internet. When an employee of CBS sends an email message, it goes into a Sun server locked away in a back room. The server processes it and sends it back out to the proper recipient.
You've got mail.
You can almost not send email out over the internet without running through a Sun server somehow, some way.
And we don't even know it.
You don't know it. And the whole idea is we want to make it so that you just don't care.
McNeally wants to make it so the only thing you do care about your computer is where to find the on-off switch.
Let me take the example. The Hoover Dam connected by lots of pipes to the water faucet. Huge telephone switches connected to simple telephones. Huge nuclear power plants connected to wires to a hairdryer. Now, why in the world shouldn't computing follow that same model?
Under that model, your crammed full of Microsoft software PC would be replaced by a much cheaper and simpler appliance. All the complicated software would be stored on the servers that you dial into. And only the technicians in the server room would need to be computer experts.
Isn't it fascinating that we all grow up and we want our kids to be able to read, write, and speak English? We want them to be able to drive an automobile, and we want them to be able to work a computer. Well, don't we want them to know how to work a nuclear power plant to turn on the lights? Don't we want them to know how the Hoover Dam works to take a shower? Bill Gates has got a great game going here. He's got us all thinking we need to train our kids on Windows. Wrong. It's just a waste of time.
Because, he says, Windows is too cumbersome and too unreliable. In this mocking Sun video, a diver's oxygen supply depends on Microsoft's new product, Windows NT. He never misses an opportunity to take a shot at Microsoft and at Bill Gates. It's
Constant jabs.
John Doerr is Silicon Valley's top venture capitalist. He provided the startup money for Sun and still serves on the board. He says McNeally's shots at Gates have helped elevate Sun in the computer world. He wants the world to think that Sun is the un-Microsoft.
The uncola.
The uncola.
Right. It positions Sun in the minds of customers as a choice, It also acknowledges the reality that Microsoft is like electricity. It's everywhere.
But he's pretty much alone out there, willing to attack Bill Gates and Microsoft. Oh, it seems, am I right, that everybody else is afraid to do that?
I think that's right, yes.
Good morning, and welcome to our hearing today.
While Senator Orrin Hatch, who investigated Microsoft last spring, had a hard time convincing most players in the computer business to testify, McNeally gleefully took the seat right next to Bill Gates and proceeded to, in effect, call him a crook.
Microsoft has the power today to exercise predatory and exclusionary control over the very means by which we access this internet.
Senator Hatch couldn't find people who weren't afraid to come and testify about Microsoft. That you were one of the very few who wasn't afraid. Why aren't you afraid?
Well, we're the only computer company left that's not reselling Microsoft technology. So what's he going to do? Withdraw supplying us? We don't resell his stuff anyhow.
Apple used to be seen as the un-Microsoft until last year, when Gates paid $150 million to make Apple his partner.
We're the only ones that didn't sell out to Microsoft.
Why does McNeally believe that he alone can challenge Microsoft? Certainly not because he's a computer genius. When he and three friends founded Sun 16 years ago, he was clueless.
I didn't know what a disk drive or a DRAM or an operating system was 10 months before we started the company.
What McNeally did have was business in his blood. His father was a top executive at American Motors.
Yeah, he was vice chairman, and I would sit down by the seat of his chair, by his chair, and I would just watch the stuff that he'd pull out of his briefcase, the stuff he'd throw away I'd read, the stuff that he'd write notes on I'd read and put into his briefcase for him.
Other kids were playing doctor or fire chief, and you were playing businessman.
Oh, I wanted to see what he was doing.
Is it true that you said, I'm never going to be like my father, he wasn't home enough, I didn't see him enough?
I said I was never going to work as hard as my dad, and it's true. I work harder.
He really is a driven workaholic, despite the jokester, blue-jeaned exterior. And he turns everything into a competition, even a conversation about his college days at Harvard. You know what's interesting? Bill Gates went to Harvard, too.
He dropped out.
Need more proof of his competitiveness? This is what he does for fun.
You got time, Turn it around.
McNeally competes on 5 amateur hockey teams, often playing 3 games a night. Does any other corporate CEO spend his spare time doing this? I've heard it said that if you want to understand Scott, come out and watch him play hockey. Getting under your opponent's skin, getting your opponent off his game.
There's no question that we play that kind of game, or at least I do. I can't help myself, but
you play that kind of game on the ice, and you play that kind of game in your business?
I probably do more so in business, because I'm a little more confident in my business than I am in my hockey game. That's just what we do, get them off their game. And so we're trying to get Microsoft off their game.
His latest weapon in the drive to get Microsoft off their game is a product called Java. It's not a machine like the Sun servers, but a new language used to write computer programs. Introduced by Sun just 3 years ago, Java is becoming the invisible language of the Internet. My husband, who lives in cyberspace, I said, do you use Java? And he said, no. And then a couple of hours later, he called me up and he said, I was wrong.
He uses it all the time, he just doesn't know it.
Exactly. You probably use it too, because the Java language can run on any kind of computer. In fact, it can run on all kinds of electronic devices, from TVs to calculators to cell phones.
Motorola signed up for Java, not Windows. Can you imagine Windows on your cell phone? You need a battery pack with shoulder straps. You need a handle and rollers on your cell phone just to carry it around.
Bob Metcalf, who himself co-founded a big computer company, 3Com, and now writes about the industry, says that Java's simplicity is what makes it such a threat to Microsoft.
The way Microsoft attracts business is by having a platform, a software platform that people write applications for, like word processing, spreadsheets, accounting, thousands of applications, and they all sit on this platform. The Java is a threat because it's another platform. So Microsoft says, wait a minute, if everybody starts writing for the Java platform instead of the Windows platform, then we will lose our control over that market. People will as easily buy Java platforms as ours, and we kind of like it when they buy ours.
Has Microsoft actually come after Sun?
Absolutely. We're probably ground zero right now. It's very, very clear they've decided that we have a chance to cost them.
You have a chance to make Windows obsolete.
Windows is obsolete. We have a chance to show the world that it is.
Well, I don't know. I use Windows. I wouldn't say it's obsolete.
Well, see, you don't know.
Well, that's true.
The problem is, what's the alternative?
Bill Gates gave a videotaped deposition in the government's antitrust trial against Microsoft. In it, a prosecutor read from Gates's own email message about an attack on Sun.
Quote, do we have a clear plan on what we want Apple to do to undermine Sun? Close quotes. Did you send this email, Mr. Gates, on or about August 8th, 1997?
I don't remember sending it.
Do you have any doubt that you sent it?
No, it appears to be email I sent.
How influential were you personally in persuading the government to go after Gates?
I'd love to, go,
Wow.
really influential, but I wasn't, right?
Well,
it's so obvious.
You went to Washington and you lobbied.
I do that a lot, but to think that I had a big difference, it's so obvious. At 95% market share, you have a monopoly.
You went and argued with the government like you're arguing right now. You said, this is a monopoly, don't you get it?
I think the value that I add is that I can put it in English, and I think that helped.
Here's what Microsoft says. They're winning and you're not, so you're whining. And
do I look like a guy that needs to whine?
No, he doesn't. His son's stock has given him a personal fortune of $500 million. And he's not just waiting for the government to beat Microsoft. He recently teamed up with America Online to buy Netscape, the company that pioneered the Internet browser. The goal is to deny Microsoft the dominant role on the Internet that it now enjoys in the personal computer business. Is it true that the first thought you have when you wake up in the morning every day is, what can I do to get Bill Gates today?
First thought is probably not how can I get Gates, but how can I make sure that my company doesn't get squished by Microsoft's monopoly. But his strategy to avoid getting squished, to attack Microsoft head-on, is a lonely and risky one.
And all these companies, all of them, from IBM and HP all the way down, have had meetings where conscientious, prudent business people have decided the smart thing to do is not to punch Microsoft in the nose, but just sort of play ball.
I understand that there are a lot of other computer companies that may be afraid to go after Gates, but they're thrilled that you're doing it.
Well, everybody would much rather we be the roadkill than them, so they're happy that we're out there.
Let him do it.
Right. Better him than me.